All right, we are live. What is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 2 of the Real Estate Take podcast with your host, myself, Wendell Butler. This is your go-to podcast with tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where we get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Ben Carbone, not Carbone, Carbone. Ben Carbone is licensed as a licensed real estate agent in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island with the Brunette. Is it Brunette?
Brunette. Yep, Brunette and Company.
Brunette and Company Real Estate and multifamily, and he's also a multifamily investor. Ben has lived in Eastern Connecticut for his entire life and has been deeply involved in the community from a young age. At the age of 12, Ben worked with his family auction business, started by his grandfather, Robert H. Glass. He graduated from Killingly High School in 2016 and later graduated from Nichols College in 2020. Ben bought his first multifamily at age 21 and has become highly involved in the real estate industry since. So let's welcome in Ben Carbone. Ben, how are you doing today?
Hey, Dom. I'm great. Thanks for having me on the pod, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to hop on. I know you're busy. You're always out there grinding, trying to find more clients, helping people get some investment properties under contract. How's it been going for you lately? Has the market been kind of tough, or you've been cruising along?
Things have been really good. And in terms of being a newly licensed real estate agent in the last 8 months, it's really about what I find is building the foundation. So, understanding everything that there is to do with a real estate contract, an actual progression of going under contract on a property, and then helping people navigate that kind of, transaction. The other thing is really connecting with people in your sphere, connecting with people in the community, doing a lot of outreach there, having meetings with local mortgage officers like yourself and others, or just, getting highly involved in communal activities, becoming a bigger member in the community, and really putting your face out there. So that's what I've been primarily focused on in the last couple months, with rates changing rapidly, buyers being unsure as to where to go and what to do. And now with the holiday season, we've seen an uptick in investor, approach in this area around the holiday season, but it seems like regular buyers are kind of taking their foot off the gas just because, they're focused on other things, Christmas, before that was Thanksgiving, and then obviously the New Year. So now, it's really the time that I've been drilling home on clients that I have on, all right, guys, New Year, rates are coming down a bit. Prices are even coming down a bit in these areas, and we're ready to roll. And I'm setting them houses, getting them set up, just continuing communication with them and making sure that if they have any questions, I'm here to answer them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely in a change of market. It's been happening for a little bit with the rates going up, and then the prices have been a little stagnant and haven't been really reacting as quickly as normal to rates going up. So What that is causing is people to be a little more hesitant. They're kind of waiting, they're kind of judging the market a little bit. And I'm sure, like you said, you're dealing with that right now, but it's smart to just kind of focus on building your network still, just making sure people get the education that they need, and just making sure that they feel comfortable with the whole process, and understanding that this isn't a long-term thing. The market will eventually become a little softer, and it's always a good time to buy. So let's just hop into a little more about yourself. So you were kind of talking about the area that you're from. Can you go a little bit deeper into that area, and also your backstory and what got you into real estate as a whole?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with what brought me to this area and what got me interested in real estate, and then I'll kind of go into this, general location. So I moved here. Well, my mom's family has been here their entire lives. They grew up in Canterbury. She went to Norwich Free Academy. My grandfather was a teacher at Brooklyn Schools before getting involved in the, auction business in Sterling, Connecticut. That's still ran by my family now. Glass's Famous Field Auctions is the name of the game. But I moved from New Hampshire to here when I was about 8 years old because my mom's family had very strong roots here, and she wanted to be more involved in the real estate business, along with, some things happening with my father with his health, where he wasn't able to do what he was once able to do. So it was kind of a great move for us to be here around my mom's family. And growing up around my grandfather, he was very entrepreneurial, very wise, and had real estate himself. So I started to see when I was young, what it took to run a business for yourself, be someone that was involved in a real estate in a particular way. And come to find out, my grandmother and my grandfather were licensed around here in real estate close to, 40 years ago, back in the 80s. So it was kind of interesting to get their take. Well, her take. My grandfather passed away when I was 11, but to get her take on, what real estate was like back then. Um, so yeah, continuing, I worked for my family since I was 12 years old, was always involved in, the community in that way. And then I started playing sports in middle school, in high school. I went to Killingly. So general location, Windham County is really where I have a foothold. So I played baseball and basketball, continue to be involved in the community there. And then I went to school at Nichols College. I commuted all 4 years because I found that, I didn't want to get into surmountable debt and then, be paying that back for the rest of my life. So it was kind of a win-win. And I was able to stay in the central location, commute to Nichols, and still hold my roots here. After college, I started doing some entrepreneurial things, moved away for a bit, came back, and that's when I really got heavily involved in real estate. Was at 21. I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the common classic, yeah, and it really triggered something in my mind where I was like, there's more to this game than just working a 9 to 5 and using that money to live day to day. I wanted to invest and have my capital working for me, and I found that was multifamilies. I started going to local meetups when I was about 20, just talking to investors, talking to family members who own property as well, trying to understand a little bit more about it. And then I jumped in to my 4 family that I now own, and got totally intrigued with the idea of owning real estate. Never did I actually think I would be selling real estate. I thought that I would get licensed just to kind of save money on my end of the deal, and use that money to put towards the property that I was purchasing. But life has its way of working full circle,
Yeah.
and I met Amy Brunette about just over a year ago, say about 14 months ago. And she's like, "Hey, when are we going to do real estate together?" And I figured she was talking about investing. Came and met with her in the office, and we just kind of discussed, what it's like to be a licensed agent, what it takes, and what I can do, especially because I already have knowledge as an investor. And I got totally intrigued with the idea of being a licensed agent, building a personal brand in this area, and helping out the community that I've known for the last 24 years of my life. Um, so I jumped in it. Ended up taking the classes. I was licensed, 2.5 months later, and it's been a ride ever since. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the communication aspect, talking with clients and moving forward there. And then just being involved more in the community in the sense of, I'm helping people to invest money and time to build their lives in this area of Windham County, which is a very special area. To kind of go into that a little bit. I think that this is kind of the perfect place for people to build a family, to build a life, because you're so close to larger cities, but you're outside of that city atmosphere where everything's very hustle and bustle. We have agricultural areas, great restaurants, great schools,
Mm.
great people. I mean, people are very friendly in this area. They want to get to know you, who you are, and what your story is. And we have really beautiful industries in this area that allow people to kind of put themselves out there. Winnie Radio, for instance, they're very communal. And then the Elks programs and things like that, you can really get heavily involved, and become a part of the community.
Yeah, and I mean, myself growing up there, I totally agree with you. It's one of the better areas that you can grow up and raise a family. I mean, I went to Woodstock Academy, which is right around the northeast corner. I think Woodstock has expanded substantially since I even like moved from there. They have tons of students coming in. They have like a whole private section of Woodstock.
Yeah.
They bought like the Hyde School, which for people watching, Hyde is like it used to be like a private, well, just like a private school that you could pay to go to, and Woodstock Academy actually like bought it, and now it's part of their campus.
Yep.
So it's just it's a community that not only is like a great place to like live, but they kind of use their money correctly that they get because they're putting it back into the school systems and the systems that really matter. And that's just something that is awesome, like about the area, but it's also
Yeah.
awesome for real estate in your career because it's a place that is highly like it's just getting better. And any place that's getting better is better for real estate. It's better for families. It's better to help people out, and it's better to just give back to the community and just be part of that community.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely attractive in that way. When a community and every town is investing their capital correctly and building a place that people want to be and go. Like, look at downtown Putnam, for instance. You know Putnam well. You own a property in Putnam. I own a property in Putnam.
Mhm.
But 10, 12 years ago, you heard stories from our parents. I mean, we were pretty young and we didn't really understand what it was like. I mean, we kind of got the gist of it, but it wasn't what it is now. I remember someone telling me uh, about 15 to 17 years ago when they drove through Putnam, they thought that there was like a nuclear bomb that dropped on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. They
No,
used to they used to be called the putt scum.
yeah, no, exactly. And now you look at it, and it's a highly desirable place for people to come and move to and be involved in and go to restaurants and hang out. I mean, that's where we go when we go out. There's great restaurants there, great activities, and you feel like it is starting to build into something that's going to be more. And that's what attracts people to these locations. So yeah, it's great. It really is.
Yeah, and that's also one huge thing about real estate as a whole, is the patience portion of it. So you can see many cities, many towns that maybe at that point don't look great, but if you have the foresight and like understand kind of how things grow and communities grow, you can see that it's going to become a great area. Similar to what's happening like Putnam and Woodstock and like Danielson, Thompson, that whole northeast corner. It's just rapidly getting better when it
It
wasn't
is.
as great as it was. But if we saw that, like I'm a little older than you kind of starting at a younger age than me, which is I'll get into that question because that's a good good question I want to ask you about that. But
Sure.
like if I knew that Putnam and stuff was going to be what it is today, like 8 years ago when I was 20, when I was 19, I would have been hopping in the real estate all within that area because it just in 9 years the amount of growth that has occurred just builds so many people's like wealth that did buy during that time in that area. And um, that's just a cool thing about real estate. It's a big patient game. But
Yeah.
let me
Yeah.
get back to you. So you started getting into real estate when you were 20. I just want to dive into that a little bit because there's a lot of people that are younger. Like when I was 20, I wasn't thinking about real estate at all. And I wish I was because real estate is better for young people because if you get into it, then you have that timeline to really help you out.
Right. Yeah.
So what did you learn getting into real estate so young? Like even with your first deal, if you want to touch on that a little bit, like what were you thinking about the future when you were that young, or were you kind of thinking about making, like hoping that you were making to make money really quick? Like what was kind of your thought process going into it? And what did you think about that deal at that time when you bought your first property? And then what do you think about it now that you're a little more experienced and older?
Yeah. So I guess I gotta look back at the time when I was purchasing that. I was involved in e-commerce. I was making great money monthly, and I wanted a place for my money to sit, to grow, and to be protected.
Mhm.
The stock market in 2020, around that time, 2019, when I bought the property, was fluctuating rapidly. I mean, we had the decline in the beginning of March, and I felt that always the stock market really isn't a secure investment. There's other people managing your money, and that worried me.
Yep.
I've lost money in the stock market. I'm sure you have. Other
Oh yeah.
people have. I mean, it's just the way it goes. And I feel like I wasn't able to control an asset in the way that I wanted to. So I got very interested in real estate, in multifamily real estate, single family real estate. Sure, there's some upside to it, but you're kind of hoping on appreciation.
Mhm.
Now, with multifamilies, I was looking for passive income. Even if it was $20 a month that I was making passively, I felt that whatever it was, I was still getting a return on my money that would be infinite. But when I purchased the property, I purchased it for 256, 256.
Yep.
and there was a issue with the appraisal. The appraisal came in low. It was listed at 270. So we had to split the difference. I had to come out of pocket an extra $8,000 on top of my down payment, which wasn't a big deal because I was making money at the time, and I still felt that it was a great property to purchase. And
Yeah.
like you asked, was I looking towards the future? Yes, I was, because I wasn't worried with, the upside that I was going to get right away. Putting 30,000 into a property, I wasn't expecting to make a 3x return within 3 or 6 months. I was looking at it. Okay, there's going to be some turnover at this property. There's going to be tenants that move out. I'm going to have to invest some money into renovations. And then also, what else am I going to need to do with the property, or what potential does the property have? Now, back in that time in 2019, the end of 2019 towards 2020, everyone was very unsure of what was going to happen with COVID.
Mhm.
So people, I remember they were telling me I had this property under contract, and I was under contract for 6 months. Like it was brutal. Things
Yeah.
kept happening where it was falling out of place. The homeowners weren't providing documentation that we needed. The mortgage rates were changing rapidly, so we were putting in a new mortgage clause where I was going to get a lower rate and lock that in. And there was all these adjustments that were happening. And then there were some issues with like an income verification because I was self-employed at the time.
Yeah.
So they were going through that, and I had the property in the contract for 6 months. I mean, it was a brutal experience. And now being on the side of the agent and having people go through the same thing, I'm able to give them kind of reassurance, like, hey, it's all going to work out in the end. You just got to stay the course. But in that time, it was my first deal. I had no other experience in real estate, and I was stressed. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
am I ever going to go onto this property? Like, what's going to happen? Am I going to lose money? Blah, blah, blah. Everything and anything comes to mind, and you don't know how to deal with it because you've never been through it. So it was a learning experience in that way. And then COVID hit, and it still wasn't closing the property. And everyone's telling me, you shouldn't buy this. You shouldn't buy this. This is not a good thing. What's going to happen when people aren't able to pay rent? They're not able to work, blah, blah, blah. I said, listen, I have reserves for that reason. I'll take care of it. But I'm looking at the potential of the property and what it could produce 5 to 10 years from now. And we've talked about this, because the market in Putnam has seen such an uptick in the last 6 to 8 months, where it's like, okay, now you're seeing returns that you wouldn't have seen back then. What do I do? But initially purchasing the property was a 5 to 10 year vision because there was a verbal approval from the town. I have 3 acres, a 4-family. I was able to build 6 more units up there with a 5th unit in the top floor. Plus, my property lines touch 3 different streets, so I could have multiple ways of egress. I could put in new driveways and things of that nature to really enhance the property and access to it. So, I was looking at all these things, and it was just like, why wouldn't I put my money into this and let it grow over the next 5 to 10 years? So yeah, it's a long-term thought, and sorry to keep rambling on about it, but things just started popping in my head as we were going on. But now, it's in a position where I'm so happy I purchased that property 2.5, 3 years ago when I did.
Yeah. And I mean, you jumped into it with the thought of long-term like potential and long-term wealth from it. And the good thing is that you educated yourself, obviously, on the potential of the property with the opportunity to build, the land
Yep.
that you had there. Like you did a lot of that. Well, probably did you do it during the whole closing, like with during the 6 months that it took? Were you like, let me check to see if this can get built on? Let me check this. Did that actually give you a little bit of time to do that, or did you do it all before?
So while I was looking at properties, there are multiple 4 families I was looking at because, people were like, oh, get into a duplex, house hack, blah, blah, blah. You can pay your mortgage. But I was looking for a return,
Mhm.
a higher return than just a duplex. So I was looking at multiple 4 families, and it was between this one and another one that had a 5-car garage, but it was only on about a third of an acre,
Yeah.
maybe. Rents were low. It was pretty well renovated. But the potential for me to invest my money was in this property. I did the research at the time when I was looking because I was trying to make a decision between 2 properties. So, I laid out the pros and the cons. I could purchase a property here that has a 5-car garage, and sure, I could rent out those garage spaces for $100 a month to somebody else, and I can make X amount of money from the 4-family. But that limits me, and that limits my cash potential and cash return over the long term of 5 to 10 years because
Mhm.
this other property that I purchased now, 60 Walnut Street, when I was evaluating, had the ability for me to build a 5th unit in the same building, convert it to a commercial, which increases the value greatly.
Yep.
Not as much as it would now, what I thought back then. Well, but and then also build up there eventually, or subdivide and sell off, or subdivide and partner, or
Mhm.
do something. So the the pros definitely outweighed the cons of the property. The property was a little, I mean, it needed some work. Tenants have been there for a long time. They're going to move on eventually, so I would need to do some upkeep. But this other one, it just didn't have the potential that I wanted.
Yep.
And I was just looking for that upside potential in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's why I jumped on that. But yeah, everything was kind of done at the time of like going under contract.
Now, did you during this whole process, did you have like a mentor, like someone that you talked to figure this stuff out, or were you kind of just researching hardcore on your own, just as the entrepreneurial mind that you have? Or
I was doing a lot of research on my own. I was asking a lot of, people in the industry, but
Mhm.
I didn't have a mentor. And looking back on it, I guess I got lucky in the terms of like I didn't have a perspective from somebody that has been investing in real estate for a long time. I kind of went with a gut feeling in a way, but also
Yep.
I educated myself enough to try to understand what I was getting into. And because I had enough wherewithal in terms of my entrepreneurial mindset, where I'm like, okay, my money goes in here. This is X amount of dollars of what I have saved and what I'm making monthly. I'm going to get this return. And then, the potentials of spending money down the road. I mean, kind of underwriting it, but I didn't know how to underwrite deals back then. I was just kind of
Yep.
looking at it like from I guess a large basis of like, okay, what's here, what's here, what's here, what do I have, and what am I going to get? I
Mhm.
wish, and now I would tell somebody that is in the position to invest to reach out to somebody that's been investing for a long time, or has
Yeah.
a better understanding, or has a larger portfolio, because they'll give you a perspective that you wouldn't have, or somebody in your family wouldn't have that doesn't have any property. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So lean on people that are knowledgeable in the area for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you basically took, one of the things that people say in real estate is just do it. Just go buy that property and just learn as you're going. And you took that quite literally. You said, okay, I'm just going to go read. I'm going to learn
Yeah.
myself. I'm just going to hop right in and learn as we go. And, for people that are young and, trying to buy their first property, that's something that you shouldn't be afraid to do. Obviously, you should have reserves. You should understand a little bit of the numbers like Ben did. So if you don't buy a property and all of a sudden are absolutely like screwed if something goes wrong. But the first deal isn't really, it's not there for you to like make a ton of money on.
No.
You could get lucky and do it, but the first deal is really just to learn. It's like an educational thing. It's going to make you money in the long run because real estate always grows. So I mean, no matter what, you're probably going to come out on top a little bit. But um, yeah, the first one is really just to dive into once you get a little education under yourself. Maybe you get a mentor so they can kind of guide you a little bit, and just be able to hop right in and learn as you go. Now, Ben, with that experience of going through that whole thing yourself, basically, and kind of leaning on people a little bit, is that kind of what made you have like the niche of looking at investments more as a realtor to kind of help guide people through that better? Like, do you kind of get a not a good feeling out of that, but like you just like to give back to people that maybe in that position that not really knowing all the stuff, and you just want to help educate them to feel better about the deals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still look at that four family as one of my best investments that I've made, financially and personally. One,
Mhm.
for the experience, two, for the return that I've already seen on my cash, and then what I'm going to see in the next, 5 years or so. Um, I definitely get pretty amped up helping people that are looking at similar properties, whether it's a first time home buyer and they're saying, okay, hey, I want to get my feet wet in a house hack.
Yep.
What do you think is the best way to go about it? And I think a duplex is a great thing for people, depending on the area, depending on the rents, depending on the condition. But I always push people, okay, hey, this is where you're going to get experience. If you're looking at being an investor long term and you want to understand what a landlord is, get into a 3 or 4 family where you're managing people, you're managing a property, and you're also seeing a higher return rather than just covering your mortgage per se. Because then you're able to deal with, running the numbers on a cash on cash return in the first year, maybe the first 2 years, managing people that live on your property understanding what it takes to be a landlord. And then on top of that, just getting your feet wet and trying to understand, because if you really want to be an investor, that's what's going to give you the drive and kind of, teach you more about what it's going to take and the things that you have to learn and research and understand. Because without you doing it, you're not going to be able to ask questions of somebody that's experienced.
Yeah.
You might have like a general question like, oh, what was it like to get your first property? But until you get your first property, you're not going to be able to ask them deep, sincere questions on how to build a larger portfolio, how to manage more people, how to take your finances that are invested in this property and move them into another property. So yeah, I definitely get jacked up about helping people. And yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, one thing to touch on there too is you mentioned that with your first property, I mean, a duplex is great, but you should always try to look for like a 3 to 4 family. And that's something that I also tell people as like a loan officer as well, because when you have the opportunity to use like a government loan, which you used an FHA for your first one, right? Or
I did, yep.
yep.
Yeah.
So
But I had to
FHA
come out of pocket another 8 or 10 grand on top of it because of the appraisal. So luckily, like I could have put down 25% on the property.
Yep.
I just figured it was a better idea to use an FHA loan, especially, lower down payment. You got to pay PMI, but back then rates were 3.5%. I ended up refinancing to a 3.1. So, it made sense at that time to do that and to pay the PMI on top. But
absolutely, yeah. And the other thing too is, so when you use an FHA loan, it's one of the only loans that you can put like a low down payment on. So you can do like a 3.5%. So you want to leverage as much as possible with that to get as many doors as possible. So I think with Ben saying to go get a 3 or 4 family, sure, duplexes are nice, but try to get it 3 to 4, try to leverage as much as you can. That's what you should do. Plus, if you can leverage the amount of loan, like as much loan as possible with such a low down payment, you're leveraging a lot of appreciation ability of the property. So think about, we were talking about stocks earlier. So when you buy stocks, you're putting like $10,000 of just $10,000 into stocks, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna accrue like 7% on that money, average, whatever. Maybe it's 7 to 10%. I don't know, whatever. You hope,
yeah.
right? And the $10 is gonna go up, and it's gonna be like $700 you make, and then it's gonna accrue again. It's gonna be like, then it's gonna go up to like 1,100, 500. I don't know. $1,100, $500, $11,500. I don't know, like whatever the math is on the second year. But the good thing about real estate is, say you buy like a $300,000 property and you put down 3.5%, so that's like around like $10,000 again. Now you're leveraging $300,000 that could appreciate. So $300,000 could appreciate, an average in real estate appreciate about 3 to 3.5%. Plus you get cash flow on top of that. So that $300,000, and then the year after that, it's going to be worth $310,000. So right there, you get your money back in equity.
Yeah,
and then the year after that,
you're building equity because you're paying down a mortgage with other people's money.
Exactly. So then the next year, just again, you're making more money, and you're making like almost after 2 years of using a 3.5% down payment, you're doubling and you're making infinite money because you already made your money back the first year. And then after that, you're just making money on top of it. Yep. And that's the beauty of real estate that people miss. They think about the stock market, but you have to put in, the only money you can make in the stock market is the money that you put in. You can't really go leverage a huge loan in the stock market. Well, you can, but it's a little more risky, which
it's high risk. Yeah. And the other thing we should talk about too. So there's 2 things, and one of them is a question for you after I state this, but is the tax advantages of owning real estate. Compared to the stock market, how much tax advantage do you have? Sure, you can put $6,000 in a self-directed RIA or a Roth IRA, but really, what is that saving you that year? In real estate, there's depreciation. There's money that you actually spend at the property for maintenance and upkeep and things of that nature. So you can take that against your income, or just use it as an expense against your tax liability. But it's a beautiful thing. And as you accrue more properties, you basically will pay less taxes because of those tax advantages that are given to you.
Exactly. Yeah. And people, it's just so much in real estate that you can capitalize on to not only make you more money, but make you spend less tax money, which in turn makes you more money, which is awesome.
And then you can invest that money in more real estate, and it's just like it's a cycle, which is
Yeah,
beautiful.
which is awesome, awesome for sure.
Yeah. So then the
Uh,
question for
yeah,
you, going off of, helping new first-time home buyers purchase a multifamily, right? You can use the rental income from that property as part of your own income for approval, correct?
exactly. Yep. So yeah, what a lot of people don't know as well is if you buy a multifamily and say you're only making like you think you can't afford it because you're only making like $50,000, what you can do is say you're buying a four family, you can take three of those units, the ones that you're not going to live in, obviously, because you got to live in one of them.
Yep.
Take three of those units and whatever the market rent is going to come in as, say it's $1,000 a unit and you get $3,000 a month from that. We're going to take 75% of that and we're going to add that to your income, which helps you get approved for even more. So you can go from maybe only being approved for like a $250,000 home to all of a sudden you're getting approved for a $400,000 home because you have that extra income, future rental income to help you qualify more. And that's another beauty of real estate because you can just leverage even more because you're utilizing the future rental payments, which I mean, it's not, people think that it's risky, but if someone's loaning $400,000 to you and they're using that future rental income to help you qualify, and real estate has been around forever,
Yeah.
it's not as risky. It's not as risky as you think.
Right. And
Because
there's systems in place too to make sure that it's not, which is great. And the other
exactly.
thing about being approved off of future rent is you don't even own the property at that time, but they're giving you approval like you do, which is amazing, right? So you're already
Yeah.
getting an advantage there from investing in a multifamily as a first-time home buyer. It's increasing your income to
Yep.
purchase the property, which is incredible, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Like even myself when I bought my first duplex, I couldn't afford it without the future rental income because I was only making like I think I was making like $55,000 a year, and the duplex was like $440,000, and there's no way I could afford that. There's no way
yeah, on paper, right? No
on
way.
paper. But the second that you include that extra rental income that's going to come in, um, combining with a great government loan, I used a VA loan, and FHA is kind of similar. You can kind of push your DTI a little bit to allow you to have more ability and purchase power.
Yeah.
Combining those two allowed me to secure the property. And the property right now is just, I ended up moving out of it and now it's just cash flowing for me. And it's super not much work for me to do. I have a property manager handling it and it's totally hands off, just making me money as a passive income.
And it's in a great area.
And it's in a good area that's appreciating.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, there's so many avenues in real estate and there's so many opportunities that people don't think about, even if they think that they can afford something. But like as a loan officer to everybody else, and I'm sure Ben can uh, talk about this too. If you can afford the rents that you're paying, like if it's in the thousands, I guarantee that you can probably buy a property, and it's
Oh,
something that you should
absolutely.
sit down and look at because with the rents increasing, which I mean, as landlords, we don't mind, but we also want to help people purchase houses, and we want people to do better and become more financially free, build wealth, build equity.
Right.
Um, but with the like rents that keep increasing, they're going to keep increasing. They've never really gone down. Rents just continually increase. Rates go up and down, and
That's true.
home prices fluctuate a little bit, but mostly they just go up. So when people get afraid of these rates and don't want to buy a property because of the rates, it's a little silly because if you end up locking yourself into like a year of rent, you're actually losing all that rent money compared to just buying a property and actually putting it into principal, getting the tax benefits, yada yada. But I can go about this all day.
Well,
But
they say that renting is like paying 100% interest, right? I mean, you're
yeah,
not you're not paying down a mortgage. You don't own the property, you're not building equity. Nothing is happening, but you're paying for somebody else's mortgage to be brought down and for them to build equity through using your capital, which, you can reverse that and you can become a landlord.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess the only benefit for renting is that if something breaks, you don't really have to pay for it unless you broke it.
Yeah, you're not liable. Yeah, right.
But you also have to wait for the landlord to fix it instead of you just fixing it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And if you have a bad landlord, which they're out there, they might just never fix it. And then I'm sure you'll be like,
Slumlords.
I want to buy a property because I'm sick of this.
Yeah. And to the people out there, everyone, the common question I get asked is, what is your fee? What is your fee? What is your fee? It's free to ask. It's free to talk to us as a mortgage officer, as a real estate agent. We make our money when a property is closed on, right? So if I'm representing a buyer, you're representing a buyer for a loan, we don't make our money until they purchase a property. And even when they purchase a property, they're not paying us. The seller of the property is paying us. So
Yep.
it's very simple. It's free, essentially, for them to use us, to get advice from us. So they shouldn't be afraid to ask. People should just come and ask us, hey, what do you think about this? Is it a good idea to get involved in multifamily real estate as a first-time home buyer? I mean, obviously, me and you are going to answer yes, but we can educate them, and it's not going to cost them a dime for us to educate them, which is the beauty of it.
Exactly. Like, we're just here to help. And we don't get paid until something is closed anyway. Like, we don't take money up front for anything. We're just trying to help people and educate them and
Right.
be trustworthy individuals. But yeah, I mean, going into that, people get afraid of paying the commission fee to real estate agents, but real estate agents will never go away because they basically help the process of purchasing a property, which has a lot of things that go into place. There's a whole documentation for the loans, which the mortgage lender kind of takes care of, but the realtor does help in some scenarios get him information or her information that is needed. The realtor helps delegate kind of with the attorney. They help delegate looking at the property with the home inspection. They can help you find homeowners insurance. They make sure that you're hitting all the commitment dates that are within the contract. Because if you miss the commitment dates of the contract, you could be out of money. You could be out of your down payment or your earnest money deposit if you don't hit the deadlines on time. And they make sure the contract is actually written correctly. Because
Right.
you could, if you're trying to purchase a property yourself and then you make an offer on a property, both you sign and you put the commitment date. The commitment date is when the loan has to be clear to close. And you put the commitment date like a week out. And then you come to me with 3 days before that commitment date and you're like, hey, I need a loan. I'm sorry, but it's going to be really hard to get you that approval.
Yeah,
And you might
for
be
sure.
out of your earnest money deposit. But realtors know the timeline of the market. They understand the whole process of it. And they know how to guide you through it to make sure that you have the safest purchase experience and the easiest, smoothest purchase experience you could possibly have without running into any of those hiccups. Sure,
Yep.
things happen in the market. There's some sellers that do things that are not great, and then you run into like home inspection stuff, maybe some appraisal differences, but then real estate agents help coordinate that, and they help you negotiate that. And just having their expertise by your side during the whole process, it just makes the whole process better, and it makes you more confident as a buyer and a seller. That's what
Yep.
people fail to realize. People think that they can do it all themselves. But trust me, everybody that I've known that went to sell a property themselves, they left a ton of money on the table because they didn't know the market correctly. They just got bossed around by the buyer in some points. They didn't
Yep.
even know like what to do with the attorney paperwork. The attorney paperwork like wasn't even set up correctly. The contracts weren't set up correctly. Just trust me, like it's worth to just use a realtor like every single time. It really is.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
that's
don't
our
avoid
goal
that.
entirely as a real estate agent, is to ease the process for whether it's the buyer or the seller. Sometimes you have both ends of the deal, but regardless, we're representing the seller or the buyer, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to be, responsible for their well-being throughout the entire process until they close on those documents. And even after that, we ensure that everything's going properly at the home. I mean, not that, they need us there for that, but it's what we do. I mean, some real estate agents aren't like that, but I hold myself accountable to ensure that things are going properly even after the close date. That they're happy, that things are going smoothly. There's no hiccups with paperwork or anything like that. But throughout the entire process, I act as a liaison between multiple facets in the industry. Like you said, the mortgage officer, the lawyers, the selling agent of the home, my buyer, my client, the home inspector, the town sometimes. I mean, there's so many different.
Plus the appraiser. I mean, if
The
it's a tough
appraisal.
market, if it's a tough market and you're afraid that the appraiser's not going to come in, Ben will go out like a real estate agent, if they're good, which Ben is good, trust me, he'll go out, he'll find comps and immediately meet the appraiser at the property, give them the comps that it needs to hit, so there's no problem on the loan side, and really help make sure that that isn't an issue, because appraisal is sometimes the biggest issue. If they come back too low, if they come back higher and you're the buyer, then you're kind of happy. But if they come back too low, then it starts a whole conversation that you don't really want to deal with. So if you just make sure that the comps are there as like a seller, that you hit that that sales price that you want, realtors help assure and help kind of do the appraiser's job for them up front in a way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's so many avenues that people miss with realtors. But let's dive into so your most recent deal, either yours or another person that you helped buy. How is this one different from your first deal as learning more as a realtor? And what are like some challenges that you ran into with it, or was it just like the smoothest process ever because you're just awesome?
Yeah, so I've had some challenging deals. I'd say my first deal ever that I did I closed in May, was the smoothest deal I've experienced in the last 8 to 9 months. I mean,
Yep.
it was like, the buyers and we looked at multiple properties. Before that, we put in a couple offers, but that's when the market was crazy hot and everyone was going multiple offer within 24 hours of seeing a property. It was crazy. We got a property in a contract, and it was the smoothest deal ever. I mean, I felt like I didn't have any hiccups. The seller's agent, no hiccups. It was, very, very easy to do. And then, as time progressed, I started seeing the challenges that my broker had told me I would see. Which I was prepared for, because I've been through some challenging things in real estate with my own deals, purchasing a flip, 3-family, my 4-family. There's a lot of different things that can happen. There's a million different things that can go wrong in a deal. I mean, so the last deal that I did, we're in a market. The market has softened up a little bit. Rates fly to the moon. And then home prices start to come down. There's less buyers out there. It's less competitive. So we get into a state of more negotiations where we're able to, negotiate closing costs or something of that nature for our client. And the last deal I did, the well was an issue, and we had to negotiate to get a new well put in before closing at the seller's cost, along with closing costs incorporated. So, before that, when the market was hot, nothing like that would ever happen. You'd have to purchase the property and most likely take care of the well yourself. But now, I was able to get into it where I was able to negotiate with the selling agent. Things went very smooth, and we closed within a matter of 4 to 6 weeks. I think we closed in 4 weeks. But regardless, I mean, it was still a smooth transaction. It just took a little more negotiation, which is a skill that you have to develop. And I was grateful that, I was able to use negotiation skills in order to get the best deal for my client. And it all worked out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's not what people think about too, because for the past like 2 to 3 years during COVID, you're right. It was just a whole bunch of listing agents putting up just a picture of a house, and people would literally just buy it with cash, like over like $30,000 over, and then be like, no inspection, none of this. We're getting back to
wave of inspections, just go for it. Boom.
Yeah. And we're getting back to a market where, as a listing agent, you actually have to sell the property. You have to make it look nice. You have to market it. You have to make sure everything is in working order within the property. Make sure that, little things before you even put on the market. Like you talk to your seller and you're like, hey, like, can we fix this, like plumbing? Can we fix this toilet? Because they're going to come back and they're going to ask for it. And then as a buyer too, you have a lot more negotiating power, like you said, for seller credit to help with like rate buy downs. So you can have seller credit back to help with any repairs. You just have a lot more negotiating power compared to before. And that's kind of what I'm seeing in the market, is now that we're getting back to that, it's kind of surprising people a little bit, because they have to start, even some sellers and buyers are kind of like, they're like, I can ask for seller credit. Like, are you sure? And like, that's another reason why, like, working with professionals like realtors and loan officers and asking us questions Like, we understand the market. We know kind of where it's at, and we see deals come to our tables all the time. And we're experiencing deals that are happening. So once we start noticing that a lot more seller credit is being asked for, we have that inside look that be like, hey, don't be afraid to ask for seller credit. And especially like with your story there, like the well had issues. So you were probably like, hey, don't be afraid to ask them to fix that well, because, I guarantee they didn't have 40 offers on the table. They probably had like 2, and ours is probably better. And they'll think about it, but they'll probably still go with us because, the difference of the purchase price and stuff. And once you start the whole process of purchasing a property, you don't want to just stop it. You want to continue through with it, even if you have to fix something.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I just thought of about that deal, when we put our offer in, there was actually a conditional offer on the table, and they had a Hubbard. So they needed to sell their home in order to purchase this home. So we were able to come in with a secondary offer, put an offer in, and then that triggers a clause where they have to get their home under contract. I believe it was within 3 days in the listing agent's contract with them, that they had to get their property under contract. So as soon as, say, we put our offer in on Monday,
Yep.
they needed to have their property under contract on that Thursday, in order to continue with their purchase of this home. If they didn't, which they didn't, our offer then gets brought to the forefront, and we go under contract, and they get removed from the entire scene. So that's what happened. And I never even heard that there was a clause like that. We saw the property, and then luckily I have a broker who's experienced everything. I mean, Amy Brunette, she's a killer. I mean, she's amazing, and she's experienced everything. She started out in 2008. She's been going with it for 15 years. She's seen the ups and the downs in the market, all these different trends. And she was able to guide me through that process. And it was really informational and eye-opening to see that things like that can happen. And even at that time, it was able to happen.
Yeah, I've been seeing a couple more of those too. I think they're called, like, I don't know if it's called a kickback clause or like a second option clause, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But the thing is, like, if you're a buyer and you do have to sell your property to purchase another property, you do it's kind of hard, because people will accept it, but then they might put that clause in, and then they can market that everywhere. They can market it, like, we'll take more offers. We're
accepting backup offers, and then as soon as an offer comes in and the seller conditionally accepts that offer, your clause gets provoked, and all of a sudden you have to be under contract within 3 or 5 days, or whatever is actually in the contract. Could be a week, but this one was pretty quick. So
yeah. So I mean, that's another reason why talking to like realtors that or loan officers that have that experience, normally you probably want to get your property under contract to sell before you go out and make offers. So you want to get it under contract to sell for like a 45-day closing or so. And then the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so, you just want to go start making offers. It's very stressful. It's always super stressful.
Well, even on that end, there's a beautiful little thing that you can put in a clause as well, where if you're selling a property and say you need to sell this property in order to buy another property, but you don't have one under contract, you can put in a clause that states seller needs to find suitable housing before moving out and before closing on this property. So you can put your home up, you get it under contract within a week, but in the conditionality, you put that I need to find suitable housing before I can close on this property. You put a timeline in there, but it gives the seller the ability to kind of take the stress off, take that burden off of needing to move directly out of this house as soon as they close, or as soon like 30 days from now, and they're able to go find other homes that are suitable for them to live in.
Exactly. And you can even you want to get even more deep into it, you can do that, and then once you close on the other property, you can even rent back to the people that buy that house. If you need like an extra week, you can put in a clause to rent back, so you give a week to move out and stuff. But there's a ton of hidden little things within real estate that you just wouldn't know without dealing with professionals with the expertise of it.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So to hop back into just another question I wanted to ask you is, it's kind of a two-part question. So far in your career within real estate as a realtor, what is like the most important lesson that you've learned? And because of that lesson, what is a tip that you'd give to like someone that wants to become a new realtor, someone that wants to become a new real estate investor or get into real estate, in either way? what's a tip that you would give them to better avoid that lesson, I guess, like dealing with it the way that you dealt with it, or just
Yep.
prepare them better to get into the industry and like the mindset that they need to have with it?
So I always fall back, or my main core principle in life has always been, understand it fully as much as you can before jumping into it. And with real estate, it's the same thing. When I came into real estate as a licensed professional, I wanted to understand the ins and the outs of the contracts, ins and the outs of communication with other agents, and how to properly present offers and also go through that negotiation process and the contractual process with every single facet we talked about. The lawyers, the home inspectors, the appraisers, and even the other real estate agents. You need to be knowledgeable in that, especially in a market where there's not as much competition and you have more time to focus on, understanding the contract and going through that process. The biggest tip that I would give to somebody coming in as a new agent or is interested in being an agent is go through those papers, go through those documents, sit down with somebody that's been experienced. Like I was able to sit down with Amy for a couple of days over the course of a week and go through all of those contracts, understand what needed to be done, practice on them, go on walkthroughs and ride alongs with her for the first month as much as I could. I mean, she's exceptionally busy, so I had a lot of opportunity. Find someone that is knowledgeable, that is totally understanding of everything that goes into a deal, because what I'm seeing now are real estate agents that got into real estate because it was easy in COVID.
Mm-hmm.
They never learned, they never put effort towards understanding the full process of a deal and the art of that deal. And now we're dealing with those people, and they have no clue what they're doing when they've been in the business, the industry for 2 years. It makes it very difficult for somebody who understands everything to do their job as well, or to try to guide them through their job when they should know it. So the biggest thing is understand your profession, understand your career as much as you can. And if you don't, ask questions. There's people out there. I don't know everything. I still ask Amy a question probably 2-3 times a week. Call her up, see her in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what do I do on this? What can I do on this? You're in the learning phase as a new agent. Embrace that. Don't be a know-it-all. And that goes for anything in life.
Yeah.
I mean, we all kind of fall victim to it where we get our stride and we get going and we think we know it all until you don't.
Until someone punches in the face.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing is just educate yourself as much as possible. And I'm still educating myself daily. So
yeah, just being a life learner, always learning and trying to figure out that next best step. Like always never think that you're the smartest person in the room. That's like a good quote. Like always go in there knowing that someone else in there is probably smarter than you, and just try to get as much information as you can from everybody that you possibly can. And I agree that with COVID, it kind of sent a lot of realtors through like a loop, because a lot of realtors just got their license because they were just listing houses left and right. They're like, let's go list houses. This is fun. And now that they actually have to do their job as a realtor and do like the whole paperwork, selling, actually look at contracts, follow the whole procedure, a lot of those realtors don't do a great job. And I've dealt with a lot working with deals as a loan officer. Ben, you definitely have dealt with it, probably working with sellers or buyers, and you're like, what is going on? The good thing is that usually with those type of individuals, they end up getting weeded out of the market because people just don't want to work with them because they get bad reviews and stuff. It's the same with loan officers. Loan officers during COVID, so many people got their license just to do refinances because they're like, let's just do refinances, and refinance loans.
Low and boom.
Yeah, so refinance loans are super easy because you're just taking a loan, you're seeing if you can get a new loan, and then you just swap the loans. I mean, it's not much to it. You just collect some paperwork, and you're like, okay, you're good to go. But those loan officers weren't focusing on the purchasing still. So now that it's back to purchasing, there's like zero refinances occurring unless, I don't know. There's no refinances really occurring.
I don't think anyone's refinancing unless they haven't refinanced in 20 years and they still own their mortgage. But
yeah. Or they're like cashing out a ton, and I don't know. But
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen still. But with those people, like you said, the mortgage officers or the real estate agents that got into it because it was easy, because they didn't have to do a lot of work and learn the things that they, were supposed to learn.
Yep.
They're going to get bumped out. And a lot of it is going to be because they're uncomfortable with where they are in their career and they don't understand what it takes to get to that next level. So, there's a barrier they're hitting, and it's just because they haven't built out a foundation. And that's what I'm primarily focused on as a new agent, is building out the foundation, ensuring that I give the utmost care and service to my clients going forward, so that I build lifelong relationships with them and they can trust me with anything that comes their way in a real estate transaction, or if they need some kind of advice in the community. As a real estate agent, we're out in the community daily. We're involved. We know local businesses. We know other people. We're always dealing with all these different, businesses in the local area. So we can give them tips and advice. I mean, I've had people reach out to me. Hey, do you know a plumber? Hey, do you know an electrician that I've worked with in the past? And it's like, yeah, I got a guy. No worries. Or, hey, where's a good place to go? I just moved to the area. Like a couple of clients that moved from Rhode Island of mine, help them purchase a property in Plainfield. And they every now and again text me, hey, do you know anything about this place? Can you recommend, a good place for us to go for a Saturday night, whether it's like a dinner or whatever? And they have young kids. So, I'm able to curate where they're going to go and what their experience is going to be, because I've been here and I understand the area. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and it's just like that's so fulfilling, because like not only did you help them purchase a property and get them, their new home, help with that process, but even after the effect, after they all moved in, they're coming to you and you're helping them, live their life. You're helping them with problems still. Like if they need, plumbing issues, electrical issues, you have contacts, and the area. So you're like, here, go here, have a great night. And they probably get back and you're like, that was freaking awesome, man. Like, we appreciate you. And that's what life is about. It's about just
Absolutely.
fulfilling and making other people's lives better, making other people's lives easier. And, it really is a career. Like real estate as a whole, it's a career that you can just really help with fulfillment and just making the world better.
Yep.
But all right, I got a couple more questions for you very quickly. So you talked about just educating yourself constantly. So that means that you probably read or you listen to podcasts and stuff. Can you give just a few books to read that you have recently read, or that you think is a great like jump starter to get into, real estate and start understanding it? And also some podcasts that you might listen to routinely that some people might be interested in that really helped you out.
Yeah, sure. So I'm big on personal development, just in all stratas, whether it's real estate, health, fitness, understanding the world, whatever it may be. A couple of the books that I most recently have read that I love and I think will provide a lot of benefit. And it's really about, these books really are about constructing your mindset around seeing opportunity and jumping on that opportunity, and how to not kind of like lay back and allow things to come to you, but more like to go get those things. Pillars by Jim Rohn. It's an exceptional book. The Magic of Thinking Big. That's a great one. It really shifts your perspective from, the day-to-day mundane kind of activities that you may do, and looking towards something that's going to build momentum throughout the next weeks and months to come. And then, to look forward to like the next 5 years and those goals that you have, and how you can accomplish them with a day-to-day activity that's not mundane, that really adds something to your life. And then the other one, it's more about just shifting your mindset and really having, an understanding of who you are and what kind of things you can give to the world, is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. 90 pages. You can bust it out in a night, 2 days, some people maybe 5. But it's really great. And then, podcasts, I just like informational podcasts. I always love to absorb information.
Yep.
So Joe Rogan's big. He just has a lot of professionals on there from the health industry, fitness, scientists, authors, whoever it may be. They provide a lot of information. And then I'll bounce around to other like business podcasts too. Alex Hormozy is really good. He wrote $100 Million Offers. He's a beast on social media, but he has a lot of perspectives on sales trainings and things like that. And then also audiobooks. So it's similar to podcasts. But, Jim Rohn, he has a lot of great audio versions of his books and just seminars that he's given in the past. And they provide a lot of great information for people to kind of jump off of for personal development. So.
Yeah, I definitely need to read some Jim Rohn books, and because I've seen like his speeches that he gives, just like scrolling through social media and stuff, and I know that I would love his books. I just haven't bought one to do it. So I guarantee
Yeah,
that that is good information for
he's
people to look
powerful,
into.
man. He's
Just what
powerful.
he says. It's just so like it's so the way that he puts it together and kind of just tells you, it just hits you. It hits you hard and it hits you home because you're like, wait a minute, like that's totally
Yeah.
true. It's like
But
common.
how simple is it though? You know, like
It's
you
so simple.
yeah, the things he says, I mean, it's just like, why wouldn't you do what he does?
Yeah, like I remember seeing one that's just he was talking about I used to be afraid of risk. Like everything's risky. This is risky, that's risky. And he's like, life is risky. Like it's so risky that you're gonna die.
It's
Like
all risky.
you're
Yeah.
gonna die. So why not just take risks everywhere? Like
Yeah. Right.
stop being so scared. And it's just like, wow, that's right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like so true and so common sense. But he kind of just creates it and says it in a way that resonates in you better. And I definitely got to read some of his books for sure. Um, but yeah, like even touch on that too. Like it all starts with self-help. Some people don't like the self-help books, but you can't build success. You can't build a successful life without helping yourself first. You got to build that base. So
Yep.
you got to work on yourself, and then all the rest will follow. So I definitely agree that self-help books are where it's at. Nonfiction books. You can throw some fiction. I've got great ideas off of some fiction stuff too, just from reading random fiction stuff. But
Yeah, no,
um,
fiction is great. I do love some fiction books. One of my favorite, actually, it's a massive novel. It's Don Quixote by Cervantes. It's one of the world's most renowned books. It was written back in like the 17th century, so
yeah.
early 1600s. It's about 1,000 pages,
Whew.
but it's about a man who reads day in and day out, night over night, and becomes so consumed with what he's reading that he goes crazy
Mhm.
and becomes a knight errant to rid the world of evil. And the episodes that he goes through with different people in society back in, it's Europe in the 1600s. It's nothing like it is today.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of lineage to what's happening today and to what people are doing and the evil that's out there and how you can rid the
Yeah.
world of evil and do good. But it's also about personal development and who you become along the journey of life. It's
Dang.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Fiction books, like it's weird. Like you're reading a fiction book that's obviously fiction, but the moral of the story, if you actually look deep into it, it's always a great moral. And you're like, wait a minute, I actually learned a lot from that,
Yeah.
even though it was like not real.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah.
Well, hey, I just wanted to give you some time. We'll just wrap it up here because it's heading right over a little an hour. Is there anything else that you would like to share with just the community? Like your social media handles, your brokerage, like where to reach out to them, any like meetups that you might run or any events that you're doing? Because I know you do a ton of charity events and stuff with the brokerage. If there's
Yep.
anything coming up that you kind of want to explain or things that you do yearly that you can explain to, this is your chance just to kind of say some stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Dell. Really appreciate it, man. You can find me on Instagram at ben.carbone. That's my personal. It'll lead you to my professional page too. That's at Ben Carbone Real Estate. And then on Facebook, you can find me at Ben Carbone. It'll lead you to all my other stuff, as well. Ben Carbone, realtor at Burnett and Company. Burnett and Company is my brokerage. They're located in Eastern Connecticut, but I'm licensed in Mass, Connecticut, Rhode Island. We really do service the Windham County area greatly, though. We have a pretty good, foothold here. Great brand presence, local, communal brokerage. We really give back in any way that we can. Most of us are here are Elks members in Danielson, Connecticut. And we're always involved in charitable events. We do the turkey trot every year right around Thanksgiving. Where we're able to collect donations for a food drive, basically to give back to people less fortunate. We do a Tommy Toy fundraiser. There's other things that happen throughout the year. If people in the local area are part of the Northeast Chamber of Commerce, there's nights once a month that we have where we're able to get together as local business professionals, network, really expand, who we know and what we know about the community and go from there. I don't have any meetups personally that I do, but I will be going to some in Worcester. I think your buddy Andrew Freed runs one.
Oh yeah,
I'm going to be attending pretty soon. But yeah, happy to be on, happy to share some knowledge with everyone, and let's get to selling.
absolutely, man. And keep doing what you're doing. You're killing it out there, and I can't wait to have you on like in the future too, and just see how far you progressed and hear some more stories about your experiences.
Yeah, man, you're gonna blow up, and you're gonna end up flying me down to North Carolina for the next one.
That'd be fun. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, no, I'll come with 100%.
You got to take a baby steps, though. You can't. What is it? You got to eat an elephant one bite at a time. So let's get it.
Yeah, man, cool. All right, Del.